Hopefully LinkedIn will still work. Let's see. Let's see. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's see if it's working today. Hello. Hello. Are we on live? Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. I don't know what is going on with StreamYard. This is the second time that I've told me I can't access my camera and stuff. And I've rebooted and done all the things, and it turned out it reset the default camera to something that I never even used. So I got to figure out how to uninstall that. But in the meantime, I'm super excited to be on with you all today because we are going to be talking about how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. And if you've been in our Power Principles series, or if you bought it earlier this year when we did the downloads, the audio downloads of Power Principles, then one of the things that you'll remember is that procrastination and some other behavior patterns really are evidence of fear in our lives. Okay. And so, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about how that plays out in our lives. And our lesson today is going to come from Think and Grow Rich. Okay. And so the thing is, y'all know that I have a version of this that I bought the license to. That's kind of a misnomer. I mean, how do I want to say that? The original version, you can publish it yourself, but finding the original version and doing it in the typeset way that my mentor did it is how I bought it, with the page numbers going down the side and everything like that. And that's why I really wanted to do it that way, because I wanted to make sure that everybody could follow along. Obviously, I don't have that book here. I realized I took them all to my new office. So if you have Think and Grow Rich, I want you to go ahead and grab that. Okay. Um, just to before we start, I want to remind you to sign up for our group coaching before the price goes up. Right now, it is only $49 a month for life, right? So if you get in at the $49 per month, it's always $49 per month for life, right? But the price will go up soon because it's starting to take off and we're starting to get more people come. And so because of that, we want to make sure that we protect the space. So for a while there, I was actually giving it out for free. And some of you will still have it on your calendars for free. And if you jumped in and registered for it, well, I'm not going to make it. I really physically can't go make you take it off of your calendar. I could rebuild it, but I don't want to do that. I'm going to reward you for taking action. So if you got in when it was free, you're in. And if you got in at the 49, you're in for life at the price you got in. So go ahead and do that now. And I am gearing up for the 2024 version of Think and Grow Rich. This will be our 6th year teaching it. And if you go now to jjclink.com/TAGR5 for Think and Grow Rich 5, you can get last year's class. And as a bonus, you'll get complimentary enrollment in this year's class. Had I taken the time to actually edit the class like I needed to before this, had my son not had his car break down while he's away at college on the other side of the country, and had I not spent 4 hours trying to calm him down and talk him through the process of taking the car to get it fixed, and had he listened to his mama, so it didn't have to take so long, yeah, I would have done that. But so the next time you hear me say something about this, it'll be go register for your early bird for this year's class and get last year's class as a bonus. But I didn't have time to change it. So if you go out there, it says Think and Grow Rich 2023. All right. So let me tell you what I'm going to talk about tonight. All right. I'm talking to you who've given up on your dream. You have worked hard, but things, they just seem like they keep falling apart, right? Every little time you get ahead, it seems like you find out one more time that it's just not good enough. Maybe today you feel like things are too complicated. You know, I did for a while, and it just seems like technology is just passing everybody by. And then every time you seem to move forward, AI, crypto, whatever, you get scammed. And now you're stuck with this limiting belief that you're never going to be able to get ahead. All right. Maybe you're stuck with this limiting belief that you're never going to have the family you want or the lifestyle you want. Or maybe you're like I was, and deep down it's a lack of discipline. And you've been lying to yourself for years. Somebody told me the other day that's a little bit harsh language, but I need you to hear that language. Some of us, we've been lying to ourselves for years. Tomorrow, I'm going to get up early and work out. I'm going to get up early and read my Bible. Tomorrow night, I'm going to spend 10 minutes focused on each of my kids. And then Do you do that? No. You hit snooze, or you find yourself overwhelmed with all of the urgent and you never get around to the important, and you get lay down in bed at night disgusted with yourself because yet again you had a list and didn't do anything on it that you said was important to you. Maybe you're discouraged because you feel like it takes money to make money. You ain't got no money. So you feel like everybody's passing you by. But I'm here to tell you, no matter what your present circumstance, it is your time. Today is your day because you're going to learn something tonight that is going to change your life. And if you're watching the replay later on, well, you're going to watch something today that is going to change your life. Today, you are going to learn how to turn that fear, that discouragement, that disillusion, how to turn all of that self-doubt upside down and start harnessing your God-given gifts and abilities to create the life you dream of. Now, for you that are new to me and my body of work, let me tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm so passionate about teaching this tonight. I am a retired Air Force physicist with 2 boys and a great husband. We live in this cute little house. You know, cute is a euphemism for small, but it's paid for, so I'm happy with it, right? I'm getting used to living in a small town cowboy land, but the people here are so nice. It kind of makes up for not having public transport or a good Jamaican joint. All right. So tonight what we're going to talk about is how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. These 6 fears have been holding you back, and it's time to set you free. And you say, well, JJ, how do I know? How do I know that fear is holding me back? How do I know that fear is holding me back? One of the primary symptoms that fear is holding you back is, drum roll, procrastination. Yep, procrastination is one of the biggest evidences in our life that there is a fear at some level that's holding us back. It could be one of these 6 ghosts of fear. It could be something that we haven't even addressed yet. It's something that we maybe haven't honored ourselves with. It may be something that we failed to grieve. There's all kinds of things that result in fear of some deep level that sometimes we don't even realize. A lot of times we think we handled it. Like, I already processed that. I had this bad news. I took my self time, my me time, my whatever you call it time. I got myself back in the saddle, but you didn't really get yourself back in the saddle. What you did was you thought about it, cried about it a little bit, but then you put it in a box, you tied that box with a bow, and you set it on the shelf of your heart. And just like a bookshelf gets full, when you set stuff boxes, all these boxes of grief and all these boxes of trauma and all these boxes of setbacks and all these boxes of discouragement, whatever it is that really impacts you, we set them all on the table of our heart. And then our heart doesn't have capacity for more. And so sometimes, we don't realize that these things have been holding us back. Well, today we're going to uncover all of that because it is time to set you free. How do you like that, huh? Does that sound good? If that sounds good, drop a chat. Sounds good in the chat. Say, yes, sounds good. Something encouraging and positive. Now, look, I just realized you may not even be able to hear me today. So I want to make sure people can hear me. If you can hear me, I want you to give me some likes, some loves, some something. Because one time I taught, now look, that was 20 pounds ago, but one time I taught for like 14, 15 minutes and nobody told me the sound was off. Okay, I see somebody's reacting there, so I'm hoping that means you can hear me. If you have a copy of Think and Grow Rich, turn to the very back. Now, I prefer that you have my copy of Think and Grow Rich, but I don't even have my copy. It is in the office right now. I realized I took all my books to my office so I can sell them to people who meet me at the office, but I need to bring some of them back home. All right. We're going to go all the way to the back of the book and we're going to go to the epilogue. Now, depending on how old your version is, okay, the original version had it as an epilogue. This is not the original version, so they made it the last chapter, okay? It's an actual chapter, okay? But it's the 6 ghosts of fear. Take inventory of yourself as you read this closing chapter and find out how many of the ghosts are standing in your way. He says here, take inventory of yourself. I already don't like him. I mean, really, how come every time I turn around, I got to change? I mean, I already know I'm not really where I need to be. Like, and we make ourselves feel so good about it. We're like, I'm just a work in progress. Does he really need to remind us? Now, in all actuality, most of us who are on my channel, we tend to be more harsh on ourselves than we would be with others. But you know what I'm getting at. we work hard and we play hard and we do all the things and we love the Lord and we spend less than we make and we do all the right, we check all the boxes, we invest in ourselves, we invest in our self-growth. How come every time we turn around there's more change? Well, you know what? We are living at the level of which our energy attracts. And in order for us to get to a higher level, we got to change something. So even if you're already at 6 and 7 figures, if you want to get to 8 and 9 figures, something's got to change. All right. I mean, I want you to be encouraged because I want you to know you are not alone. And if you're not alone and somebody else figured it out, then that means you can bust through these. You can conquer these 6 ghosts of fears. Okay. And so what he's really saying, I mean, this is my paraphrase, right? Look, you want to move forward. You got to be honest about where you are and what's stopping you. Okay. He says, as you read this closing chapter and find out how many of the ghosts are standing in your way, before you can put any portion of this philosophy into successful use, your mind must be prepared to receive it. Woo, y'all. Before you can put your philosophy into use, your mind must be prepared to receive it. Now, you know that this is true because you and I go to a million conferences and we take a lot of good notes and there's a lot of good energy. We get all excited. We get all hyped up for whatever's coming next. And then we go home and what happens? We forget all about it. We go home and life happens. We go home and now we're doing snotty noses and cleaning baby throw up out of the car seat, right? Our mind must be prepared to receive the philosophy, to receive the growth, to receive the advantage. And the preparation is not difficult. He says here, the preparation is not difficult. It begins with study, analysis, and understanding. Study, analysis, and understanding. Of the 3 enemies which you shall have to clear out, these are, these are indecision, doubt, and fear. Okay. Of the 3 enemies of which you have to clear out are indecision, doubt, and fear. So he's saying it's study, it's analyzing, it's understanding indecision, doubt, and fear. And I really hope as you think about it that you really do, that you these things really do seem to have commonly come up in all the chapters of Think and Grow Rich. Now, if you didn't study Think and Grow Rich with us last year, that's okay. We're going to kick off another lesson, another round. We always do it in October, November, right? Think and Grow Rich. And we're gearing up for that now. You can get in on the early bird if you just go ahead and go out to jjclink.com/TAGR5 for Think and Grow Rich 5. All right, you can get in on the early bird. But even if you were there last year, you've grown a whole year and you're going to see it in a new perspective. So I hope that you will be out there with us, okay? Indecision is what stops most of us. Indecision is what stops most of us. And indecision is a symptom of fear. All right. So the opposite of fear is faith and the cultivating of faith. Okay. So now what about the next couple of lines here? Okay. You know, he calls indecision, doubt, and fear the unholy trio. Woo, y'all. Now, this was a man who was excommunicated from the church, but even he acknowledges that is the unholy trio. You know why he was excommunicated from the church is because he really tried to take his philosophy too far and take it away from God. But if you look at what's captured in this book, almost everything, well, actually, every principle that's captured in this book is captured in the Bible. So I wouldn't necessarily go trying to find all his other writings, but I would definitely sign up for the Think and Grow Rich. Okay. Indecision, doubt, and fear, the unholy trio. All right. They grow without you even noticing them unless you work to notice them. And then they cut off your intuition, your ability to know without knowing. And when your intuition is what helps you tap into the word of God. Okay. Indecision is the seedling. Now, if you've got my big book, my big version of it, it's on line 10. Okay. I already know that because I'm looking here and it's kind of the same line. Indecision is the seedling of fear. Indecision crystallizes into doubt, and the two blend and become fear. Okay, so you can stop fear at the pass when you start to notice yourself being very indecisive. Now, I was listening to a podcast of somebody and they were talking about how they make very quick decisions and they don't really change them much. And how their wife, she always makes a decision and then second guesses it. And I thought to myself, this man is a world leading psychologist. And yet he's not acknowledging. Like, if I was him, I wouldn't even have told that story, because what his wife is showing is that she is exhibiting characteristics of unsuccessful people. One of the concepts we're going to learn about in this book in fall is, and we're really going to dig into it, are the traits of successful people versus unsuccessful people. And one of the differences between successful and unsuccessful people is that successful people make decisions very quickly and they seldom, if ever, change them. Unsuccessful people take a long time to make a decision, and because they're so afraid, they tend to waffle on it and go back and forth and go back and forth and question their decision. Now, some personalities lend themselves to making that snap decision more easily than others. But we have to realize at the end of the day, once a decision is made, we need to make it, carry it out, execute, and then regroup and adapt if things don't work out right. The more we sit time in indecision crystallizes into doubt. And then we begin to doubt. And now what happens is that indecision and that doubt merge in our bodies, merge in our minds, merge in our emotions, and become fear. And guess what is the antidote to indecision? Decision. If you're with me today, write decision in the chat. Decision is the antidote to indecision. You've got to be in the habit of making decisions, okay? You've got to be in the habit of making decisions. And you've got to be in the habit of asking yourself, isn't that interesting, when you find yourself waffling on a decision that you know is good for you? When you find yourself in indecisive mode, you have to be aware of it, because he's saying here, down in indecision, grow into fear, and they germinate and grow without their presence being observed. So if you interrupt the pattern, now you can arrest that pattern, stop it in its tracks, and you can move forward. Okay. Let's see. There's a quote. I'm not sure who says it, but there's a quote that says, fear enters, logic leaves, right? Anybody know that, right? How many of you have had bad decisions because you were afraid? Fear came in and all logic left. Fear came in and you got all into your emotions. Fear came in, you got all into the fear, all the feels. And when fear entered our mind, that intuitive channel, our connection with God, got blocked. Then we couldn't hear the voice of God. We lost our ability to discern that voice because we're so wrapped around the axle in our emotions. Then our ability to connect to God is cut off from what he's trying to tell us to do. And really in our lives, what has happened spiritually is like somebody has taken the garden hose and kinked the hose so that spiritually we are just like stopped in our track. Okay. It's also like, another example would be like having a radio station that's between two channels. You click it to 105.1 and you get music. You click it to 105.7 and you get talk. But at 105.6, it's just static. Okay. It's static in between frequencies. And what Napoleon Hill is saying here is, you're never going to be able to have that free flow if you've got too much. Your ability to flow becomes blocked when we are operating from fear or doubt or indecision. So if you're all over the place and you can't decide, then you are seeing in your life that indecision is a confidence killer. And when we're indecisive, we are sending a message to our other than conscious mind that we're inadequate, that we're unsure, that we're not good enough. That's the message that we're sending. And so one of the key teachings with Building Wealth Together and our new Ladies of Wealth podcast is that the universe likes speed. Your mind likes decisiveness, and the marketplace rewards those who go first. You don't have to get it 100% right. You get out there and get your market share while everybody else is trying to set themselves up just right. And by the time they jump in, you've captured so much market and got better in the process that you make more, you accomplish more, you change more lives. The way that God set up the universe is that the universe likes speed. Now, I'm not talking about waiting on God. That's a whole separate thing. That's our own personal spiritual development. But when God gives us a thing to do, He does not like us to waffle on it. He doesn't like us to drag our feet and allow indecisiveness, fear, and doubt to set in. Our mind, the way God created it, operates best in decisiveness. Even, get this, even if you make the wrong decision, because guess what? You can always change and adapt. Okay? He says, let me go back to it. He says, indecision is the seedling of fear. I mean, that's so good. We just, if you got a book, you highlight it, underline it. Okay, underline it, highlight or underwrite, mark it. All right. It's that good. Indecision is the seedling of fear. Think about it for a minute, okay? Indecision is a seedling of fear. So now fear is growing. It's, that first little, I'm not so sure. It just pink, go right in there. And then it just starts growing, growing, growing. And he's saying fear is the result of something that's been planted. It's been planted. It could have been planted by a memory that came up of something that messed up a long time ago. It could have been planted by some person who's jealous of you and doesn't want you to succeed. It could be planted by someone who's unhappy. This is what really happens most of the time, y'all. You do realize that most of the time people bring criticism against you. It's because they're not happy with their lives and they don't want to see you be happy with your life. They don't know that they don't want to see you be happy with their lives. In fact, some of them even think that they are trying to help you out by telling you to play small, by telling you to play it safe, by telling you not to rock the boat. They even think they're helping you out, but deep down at the core of them meddling in your life and trying to put a slow roll on your dream is their own dissatisfaction with their life. And that's the little seed. Now think of now that and then it boop, and then it begins to grow. So think about a seedling, right? A seedling is not the same as a seed. There is a difference, right? But then the seedling's not a tree yet either. It's not even a whole plant, but there are roots. It's rooted. You can literally uproot a seedling and transplant it. You can transplant it. So get this. Your indecision. Oh, y'all, this is about to be good. If I was behind the pulpit, I'd say, get this. Your indecision can transplant fear into the minds of other people. So think if you're a leader, think if you're working with a team of people, think if you're leading a company and you are indecisive, your indecision is a seedling, and seedlings can be transplanted. They take root and grow. Take root and grow in the minds of other people, in the minds of your children, in the minds of your workers, in the minds of your team, in the minds of whatever, in the other areas of your life. If you are indecisive, it's a seedling of fear. And I think that's a really powerful statement. And it's ready to develop and grow. And it can grow on its own now. It doesn't take much care and custody and control. It's a seedling, right? It's rooted. So remember this as you read. Indecision crystallizes into doubt. Think of something crystallizing into doubt. In clarity, right? Like you get very clear about your doubt. When he talks about crystallizing your doubt, think about what that means. It crystallizes your doubt, meaning it makes your doubt very clear. And in the chapter about faith, he talks about having faith in our doubt. Like we have total faith in our fear. That's the worst part about it. We have total faith in our fear. We have total faith in our fear. And yet we don't have faith in the outcome that we're looking for. But we have all the faith in our fears and our anxieties. All right. But he's saying here, crystallizing the doubt, the two blend and become fear. And this blending process is slow, often slow. And that's why these three enemies are so dangerous. Okay. It's cunning. Ooh, y'all, the Bible calls it subtle because it really is. This is one of the reasons these three enemies are so dangerous. They're cunning. They germinate and grow without their presence even being observed. You don't even realize how fear-based you've become. You don't even realize. We tell ourselves, "Oh, I'm not being indecisive. I'm just making sure it's prudent. It's an amount of prudence." There's a big difference between clarity, thinking what we do, consideration, giving an idea, and being indecisive. And that's where it's really dangerous, because these indecision and doubts germinate and grow so slowly without their presence being observed that they're not observed. They're not observed. Now there was this program talking about food and health. You might have seen it. They talk about how the danger of low levels of toxins in foods is actually more dangerous than bigger toxins, because when there's a higher amount of toxin, your body's like, boop, there's a problem, and it deals with it, right? But when there's infinitesimally small amounts, just little teeny tiny amounts of toxin, the toxin kind of goes under the body's radar, and it builds up over time and then becomes a much bigger problem. So when the change is very, 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 very small, and the threat is very, very, very small, but incremental, it's often more dangerous because we tolerate it, or it goes unnoticed even. We don't even realize. We become accustomed to it. We adapt to it. We accept it. It's familiar. We don't realize. If it was a change all in one go, we you know, relationships are a good example of this. If people behave the way where it's kind of like grown into, if they believe that way right in the beginning, if they behave that way right in the beginning, you would never tolerate it. But if it gets there kind of slowly, bit by bit, you kind of put up with it. You've grown some affinity to this person. You kind of think they might be the one. You don't want to let them go. You just kind of accept it. You just kind of accept it. You just kind of accept it. But if they had thrown it all at you at once, you'd be like, I'm out. Next, you are not the one. The frog is a good example of it. Have y'all heard this? Now, I've not tested this, not even living in Louisiana, y'all. No frogs were harmed or will be in the production of this lesson. All right. Now, I want to see any Facebook trolls. Now, I tried it and he hopped out. It's a metaphor. But for those of you who haven't heard the metaphor, you put the frog in cold water and you gradually heat up the water. Okay. But the story goes, if you put him in the cold water and slowly turn up the heat, if the change is slow, he's enjoying his hot tub, and now suddenly gets a little hotter and it get a little hotter, and now he's got a problem. But if you put him in the hot water right away, the story goes, he'll jump out. So we're talking about indecision, and we're turning this into kind of a deadly fire. And I think it's really powerful because we don't even realize it. It comes in slowly like a teeny tiny toxin. It comes in slowly, like turning up the water ever so slightly, 1 degree at a time. And we accept it. And that's why I say it's very cunning how it grows, takes root. And then what do you do? What do you do? Decision. You gotta decide. If decision is the way out, you gotta decide, don't you? You gotta cut away what you don't want and choose what you do. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about fear, because fear is an emotion, right? It's a very powerful negative emotion. And fear is different from concern. A healthy concern, it may not even always be an emotion, maybe just an awareness, right? But it's not anywhere as negatively charged as fear. And one of the things that we have learned over the years between Think and Grow Rich and psycho-cybernetics, some of the work of Dr. Amen, you see some of the books behind me. One of the things that we've learned about the brain is that what gets lodged in our subconscious is the stronger an emotion attached to the experience or the knowledge or the awareness, the deeper it gets lodged in our other than conscious mind. And guess what? The negative, for many of us have a negative focus of control, or a negative focus where the negative means more to us than the positive. Okay. And so one of the things that I think about fear is that it's really a trigger chemically in the brain. Okay. Chemically in the brain. And when I realized, for me, and I often, I think for a lot of people, I used to think that fear was an indication that I shouldn't do something. If I was afraid of it, I should run away, avoid. It's a blinking yellow light. Slow down, right? So if you're driving down the road, and you see a blinking yellow light, you don't stop. But what do we do with fear? Fear is like a blinking yellow light. Let me say that again. Fear is like a yellow blinking light. We treat it like a red stoplight. See, a yellow blinking light means slow down. In fact, if you stop, you could cause an accident because the person behind you is expecting you to slow, not stop. What fear is telling you is to proceed with caution. If you're on the top of a building, you're in the center of, the middle of the building, on top of a 100-story building. I mean, you would feel relatively safe in the middle, but the closer you get to the edge, well, you might begin to experience a heightened level of concern. And then as you get closer to the edge, fear. That fear is not saying don't go to the edge. It's saying, hey, look, you're on new territory. The territory you're entering now has different consequences. Every step that closer to that edge has a different consequence. And when you were in the center of the roof, you didn't care how windy it was on the roof, right? So now that you get closer to the roof, now you're kind of like, I should probably take note of how windy it is, right? This just makes sense, right? When you were in the center of the roof, you don't care to notice if there was gravel that was loose and maybe a little slimy from the air conditioning algae or something, right? But you get close to the edge, and now all of a sudden, look, I'm watching the wind and I'm watching the footing, and I'm making sure that I'm watching who's around me and who could I bump into and who could bump into me. Is there a tripwire? Is there something? I mean, that's what fear is designed for. It is not saying don't go. Fear is saying proceed with caution. Think about what you're about to do. Think about what you're about to do. And so I realized that the way I operated was as soon as I got the first sign of fear, boom, I pressed the brake. Stop everything. Absolutely avoid. If there's a chance of pain, whoop, getting out of the way, not the kid. And you know what I had to realize, so I could grow to the next levels, that fear wasn't telling me no. In fact, I want you to hear this. Fear is not even telling you that you can't do something. It's an indication that you haven't that you're entering new territory, that you need to proceed with caution, be alert. Fear's purpose is to keep you alive, right? Fight or flight, right? But we're no longer Neanderthals. There's no saber-toothed tigers jumping out at us. For 99% of what we do, and in 99% of the world, we're blessed, and we don't have to worry about, most of the decisions and the things that we're facing. They're not life or death situations, even though our body is under stress and trying to convince us differently. Okay. Some of you might remember I did a program, Self-Image Mastery, where Dr. Harold Bafidis introduced me, and he quoted, oh man, who was it? It'll come back to me. Maybe it won't, but the quote was, it was Mark Twain. If a cat sits on a hot stove, it won't sit on a hot stove again. It won't sit on a cold stove either. After that, the cat is done with stoves. And we do the same when it comes to fear. I'm not doing any of it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, no, let me say a little more on that. I was going to go into and list these big fears, okay? But let me go into a little more on that, because I feel like somebody really needs to hear this, okay? A lot of us are approaching life like that cat who sat on a hot stove. And we're like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sit on any stove, ever, right? And maybe it isn't to not sit on the stove. Maybe it was just a certain time, and it was just a certain part. And maybe it wasn't actually that bad. And that's what we do with fear, what fear does to us. Fear becomes a magnifier. And so you'll have people who've gotten hurt financially, and they think they'll never invest again. Well, stocks are out. Well, real estate's gone. Banks, can't trust them. People or relationships, done. You're crossing everything out of your life that's good if you listen to fear. And it is possible that there might be some kind of danger here. I mean, there's a very interesting investment metric. It's called the fear versus greed index. And so the fear index is when everybody's worried that the market's going to crash, so they start selling all their stuff and the market starts to dip, right? And then the greed index is when everybody's buying, right? And so what fear does is fear pushes people to exit the market right at the time they should be buying. And this is one of the things that fear does. It compounds the issue. Again, when fear enters, logic leaves. Logic leaves our thinking, and it's actually biological. I met Dr. Bruce Lipton a couple years ago at a John Maxwell conference. And one of the things that he says about stress is that we have to remember that there's three important things that happen when we're in that kind of fearful stress situation. The first thing that happens is that blood moves away from digesting food, and it moves away from our stomach, our internal organs, and it goes out to our limbs so we can run away from the tiger. Even though there's not really a tiger out there for most of us, but in that fight or flight, the blood moves out and you go into a state of protection. And if it gets too extreme, you actually freeze up. So it's really fight, flight, or freeze. The second thing he says is that the immune system shuts down, because really, who cares about fighting off a cold if you're about to get eaten by a tiger, right? And so your body's like, we're going to use that energy to run from the tiger. So it saves energy from digestion. It saves energy from your internal organs. It saves energy from the immune system. Okay. The third thing, and this is really relevant here, the blood moves away from the forebrain to the hindbrain, because you don't really need to reason with the tiger. You want reflective actions to be able to get away. And so what we're responding to, even though there's no tiger, this fear, this stress, it results in the exact same impact. You're stressed and you know it, but you can't think. You literally can't think. Like, your biological wiring makes it more difficult for you to think. And fear entering and logic leaving is a problem potentially. So we need to be aware of these things. And then fear stops us from engaging in growth very often, because guess what? We avoid anything that causes fear. And guess where growth is? Growth is at the edge and the outside of our comfort zone. You don't grow in comfort and peace and rainbows and unicorns. You grow through the discomfort of being outside of your comfort zone. You know, there's so many people who get the thinking part of Think and Grow Rich. They're like, yeah, I can think and I can get rich because that's what I want. And they think the word grow is get. Think and get rich, think and get rich, think and get rich. No. It's think and grow rich. It's a becoming. It's a becoming. It's a growth. It doesn't happen unless you grow. You have to grow and step forward into it, right? You have to opt into it. I can have belief for you, and you can borrow some of my belief that you can do it and you can make it, and there's greatness in you, and the Lord is just waiting on you to release that greatness to the world, right? You can borrow some of my belief, but you can't I can't grow for you. You have to opt into growth. You've got to grow. You can't hide away. You got to step forward and do everything that it takes to grow. And I think it's smart that this is the last chapter, because that's really the block for many people. It's the block to doing, and he says the whole philosophy can't be applied until our minds are ready. And then he lists the 6 basic fears, and that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of our time. I want you to know that that for many of us, I can give you this, but it's your time to rise up and grow. It's time to get outside of your comfort zone and prepare your mind to be outside of your comfort zone, and to be okay with not being okay, and to be okay with being uncomfortable, so that this philosophy can be applied, and so that you can overcome these 6 ghosts of fear. Okay. And if you have these 6 fears in your life, they are stealing away everything that you want. And this is part of how you know you are hamstrung by the indecision and doubt, because these 6 fears are playing out in your life. Okay. So 6 basic fears. First one is the fear of poverty. Oops, I hope that's not too loud. Fear of poverty. Okay. The fear of criticism. Now, let me go back to fear of poverty really quick. No. I'll just keep reading them all. Okay. First one, the fear of poverty. Now, the fear of poverty is a powerful motivator, and it's also part of the reason that many people build great wealth and then they still can't enjoy life. The fear of poverty. The fear of criticism. Y'all, the fear of criticism has stopped more amazing dreams in their tracks than anything else I know of. And then the fear of ill health. Now, you would think that at the end of the day, we would be so concerned about our ill health, that we would take better care of ourselves as entrepreneurs. But really, what what we find is um, what we find is when it comes to the fear of health, of ill health, this is not just physical health, but it's also, he says here, social heredity. It is also closely associated with old age and death, which we'll get to in a second, because it leads one closely to the border of terrible worlds. Uh, the What certain unethical people have engaged in the business of selling health by keeping alive the fear of ill health. Okay, so a lot of the things that keep us afraid is the fear of ill health, which then keeps us subject, and because of the fear, subject to all kinds of scams. Okay, the other three ghosts of fear are the fear of loss of love of someone. Okay, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. Every other fear falls into these categories. And the way that you deal with it, the way that you take charge of your life, is through decision. Your decision to have faith in yourself, faith in your dream, faith in your God who gave you the dream and has fully equipped you to accomplish all that he has called you to do. When you decide to have faith, you overcome every negative influence that the devil uses to instill, nurture, and grow fear inside of you. When you decide to have faith and take back your life, take back charge of your life, you open yourself to achieving all that you desire and all that God desires for you. Okay? When you decide, I am going to take charge of my financial life, and I'm going to live by sound principles. Spend less than you make and invest the rest. If you're in debt, you invest the first amount in getting out of debt. If you're not in debt, you invest in yourself and in your future. And if you have got all that set, the next thing you invest in is your real estate, your stock market, your retirement, and your community and your legacy, right? So every level, there's places to invest. And I know I'm going to get some people who start, so drop the comments about, well, good debt is a thing. And I'll be like, good debt may be a thing for you, but good debt leaves a lot of people in fear, because you never know when the other shoe is going to drop. So if you want to live a fear-free life where you are no longer afraid of poverty, then you will strive to get yourself debt-free. Oh, no man, is what the Bible says. All right. Now, this fear of poverty is interesting. He talks at length about this because he calls it the most destructive fear. The fear of poverty is what pushes us into making all kinds of decisions that are not right for us. That's why it's important to follow a solid wealth building plan. And usually the foundation of that plan is getting rid of all that consumer debt. In fact, I talked with somebody today. I thought my situation was bad, $845,000 of debt with the divorce. She started a credit processing business during the dot-com boom, and right as it was crashing, and she ended up with over $500,000 of debt from the crash of that business. And she had employees, and she was trying to do everything she could to keep them all together. And she didn't know of Larry Burkett back then, but what she did know was the principles. And she hustled and she worked and she got herself out of all the debt. I'm going to interview her in a few weeks. And so I'm really excited to share that with y'all on the podcast. But one of the things that she did, she not only took care of that $500,000 of debt, but this is 20 years later, she took care of that. And now she has over $1 million net worth on her own. No husband, no kids, no nothing to help her out. She did it all on her own. All right. And so, a lot of times we don't realize that we're afraid of poverty. And that's how insidious it is. And so I'm going to give you some of these. Now, if you take the Think and Grow Rich class, there is a list in the end of the class. And if you sign up for this year's class, which kicks off in October, if you sign up for this year's class now, you will actually get access to last year's class. So you can already look at this. Okay. There is a list of all of these different symptoms of each fear. And so you think, I don't have a poverty fear. I have an abundance mindset. I believe in prosperity. I believe there's enough for everybody. I'm not worried about my piece of pie. We'll just make more pie. That's what you say, and that's what you think you believe. But it says here that some of the symptoms of a fear of poverty are indifference, indecision, doubt, worry, over caution, procrastination. And this is the interesting thing. Procrastination falls in almost all of these fears. That's why I say procrastination is one of the biggest symptoms of fear in your life. If you are finding yourself procrastinating, it could be that you learned a procrastinating habit from your home of origin, you know, but if you are in an entrepreneurial state, procrastination means you are afraid of something. And sometimes that's rejection, sometimes that's fill in the blank, whatever it is a sign that you need to take a deep look at what's going on inside so that you can put whatever fear is popping up into rest. And the way we do that is by making those decisions and tapping into the courage. I talked the other night with the GSU folks, the Global Speakers University, about how we have to be courageous as entrepreneurs. Now, if you're interested in something like that, let me know. I'll put you in contact with the folks. But procrastination is one of the biggest signs of fear in our lives. Okay. It's really interesting when we talk about these fears. He goes into talking about the fear of criticism and how one of the big signs that we are afraid of criticism. And I know you're not afraid of criticism. You're loud and proud. You're large and in charge. You got a big mouth and you know how to use it to make money. But do you have some self-consciousness? I'll never forget the day when somebody told me that what stage fright really is that you care too much about yourself. You're too worried about how you look. You're too self-conscious. And then that prompted me to get over my stage fright and my fear of being imperfect in front of others. Because really, at the end of the day, stage fright and fear of imperfection is all about you. It's all about how you feel about yourself. And you think that others are gonna feel sorry for you, but those who are astute and who live on higher planes of energy, they already know. The reason you've got stage fright is you are too wrapped up in yourself. So if you've got that self-consciousness, I'm not being mad at you. I'm just helping open up your eyes the way somebody helped open up my eyes. Okay. Now, personality. This is interesting. Lacking in firmness of decision, personal charm, and ability to express opinions, definitely. Now, some of you might say, well, I just like to kind of go with the flow and I don't like to be too direct and I don't like to be this and that and the other. Well, you can make a choice not to be direct if that situation calls for it. But the inability to be direct, that suggests a fear of criticism. You get asked a question. Well, did you get an oil change? Well, I went here and I did this and I did this and I did this and I did this and blah 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 blah. But you never answer the question. Yes, I got an oil change. Okay. Y'all, another one. Extravagant. I know. You're spending money to make money. You got to spend money to make money. You got to look the part. Everybody says you got to look like what you want, right? And so we spend a lot of money and we spend a lot of extravagant measures, really, because we are afraid of criticism. Now, interestingly, lack of initiative and lack of ambition also feed into the fear of self-criticism. So when you meet somebody that has no ambition, how do I want to say this? A lot of times people think it's spiritual to not have ambitions. And it's so funny talking to people like that. Like, it's like, oh, well, what do you like to do? I like to read my Bible. Well, what do you like? What do you like to watch? I like to watch shows about the Lord. I like to watch replays of church services. And I'm like, unless you are a bishop or an elder, I'm gonna need you to be real because I know you are not praying and studying 24/7 when you act like you act. But you're so afraid of criticism that you don't want to express any desires or any ambitions. You just want to go to work and do nothing and collect a paycheck. What that really says is you are so worried. Well, okay, it could be you're lazy. Okay, I'm gonna grant you that if you are on this broadcast, or if you are taking this class, or if you are listening to this as part of my podcast that we extract some of these lessons from, or maybe the YouTube channel, we extract some of these lessons and put them on YouTube. I'm gonna grant you that if you're in this thing with me, you are not a lazy person. Okay. But if you are not a lazy person, but you find yourself not having ambition, it could be that you're too afraid of criticism. It's like the person at my job who was like, oh, I want this and I want this and I want that. And the mentor was like, when I was in the military, the mentor was like, one thing I didn't hear you say is I never heard you say you want to get promoted. Okay. All right. The fear of ill health. This is the third and one of the top, these three: the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, and the fear of ill health. These are the top three fears that stop us in our tracks. These are the top three ghosts of fears, the strongest ones. If you overcome these, you're going to solve about 99% of your problems. All right. Symptoms of ill health is autosuggestion. Now, this is interesting because you've heard me talk about autosuggestion being a fantastic way for you to elevate your thinking. If you've got stinking thinking, you can record some good scriptures or affirmations, and you can play them as you're going to sleep. And as you're going to sleep, and as your body's resting and it's getting into those right brain waves, then those things that you've recorded to yourself begin to take hold. That other people use autosuggestion tapes. I get a little squeamish about them. I have one that I sell. I can sell it to you, but I always get a little squeamish about other people's stuff because I don't know what their spirit is. I don't want anybody speaking into my subconscious unless your spirit is right with God. All right, but I do have one that I sell if you're interested in something like that. But this is the negative autosuggestion. Always looking for and expecting to find any symptom of disease, any problem, any little thing. Your mind just goes all the way down the line about all the possible ways you're dying tomorrow, and you go with it. You don't fight it. You don't say, "Whoop, this is a fear, let me stop it in its tracks." Like me make a decision for my health, because you can make a decision for your health. You can make a decision for your health. I understand. Look, if there's anybody who understands, I understand that we can make a decision for our health and not see the results we want to see. Oh my goodness, I understand that because I'm living that, right? But when I go to the doctor, even though my weight hasn't dropped and even though this hasn't happened and that hasn't happened, the doctor's like, "Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing because your numbers are getting better." The internal numbers. And sometimes, ooh, y'all, this is a whole word right here. Sometimes the work that is happening for you to get to that next level of income, that next level of relationship, that next level of spiritual growth, that next level of personal growth is happening on the inside. Doesn't show up on the outside yet, but you keep going and it will show up. Keep making decisions that will further you in your health, your wealth, your spiritual growth, and you will get there. All right. Interestingly, susceptibility. So you get afraid of ill health, and you're so afraid of ill health that you cause yourself to be more sick. Why? Because we already talked about this fight or flight and how the body directs blood away from the immune system to deal with the possibility of a tiger about to eat us up. And there's no tiger about to eat you up. You're afraid. It's time to make a decision for your health so you can get over this. Okay. There's more in here. I'm not reading all of them. Okay. Now, the other fears, I'm not going to go into them now. We're going to get into them in more detail in our Think and Grow Rich class. But there are the fear of loss of love. They are the fear of old age, which is different from ill health. Okay, and especially in our culture is still very age phobic. I don't know the right way to say that. Our culture doesn't like old people. Our culture values youth and vitality of youth. Our culture does not value the wisdom and experience that comes with maturity and age. And I understand that some of that is because a lot of the experience that comes with maturity and age is locked up in a decaying body and an aging body. And so sometimes when someone who's older is trying to impart a lesson to someone who's younger, the person who's younger is like trying to be like, go, 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 go. And the person who's older is taking a little time to get the words and get the thoughts out. I have learned to be more patient in that. And I think that's why I've been so successful with the nursing home ministry, that plus the grace of God, because there's not an area I ever wanted to be in, I never felt comfortable in. But because I had that car accident and I had the experience of trying to get my words out and it taking forever to form the words and forever to get the words out of my mouth. And I had good things to say, but by the time I could get it out, the people had already moved on to the next question. Okay. So the fear of old age can be fear of senility and things like that, fear of how society treats you from being old. This is why a lot of us, we're like, okay, no. So it used to be, I'm 29. I'm 29 with experience. I'm 29 with experience. Now it's like, well, so-and-so's 49 with experience. I'm 45 with experience. we don't want to be old. We color our hair because we don't want to look old. right? And after a while, we finally realize, hey, that's part of life. Aging is part of life. But there's a real fear here. There's a real fear that drives a lot of us into making very poor decisions, or rather to not making the decisions we should make, and that being caught in indecision. And by not deciding, we've actually decided. What? Yes, by not deciding, you've actually decided. When I don't make a decision for my financial future, what I've really done is I have decided to take in whatever anybody else says, and usually it's for their benefit, not mine. When I have not decided to take care of my health, then what I've really done is I've just decided to go along with what everybody else is doing. And guess what? Everybody else is unhealthy. When I have decided when I have not made a decision to nurture my primary love relationships with my children, my spouse, or the people that are most important to me, when I have not made a decision that I'm going to nurture and take care of these things and count them as precious, my indecision has actually made a decision that I don't care about the other people. We don't feel that way, but that's what our behavior does. And that's what the results we get. So our indecision is actually a decision. Okay. There's also the fear of death. And I want to close on this. The very last thing that he says about the 6 ghosts of fear. And again, if you go into my Think and Grow Rich class, I've got a list of all the questions to help you self-diagnose where you're finding issues on this. I should probably make that a test. I might just make that a test, right? And some very surprising things in there. But the last thing he says before he gives you that, he says 2 key things that I really want you to pay attention to. He says that in addition to the 6 basic fears, there is another evil by which people suffer. It constitutes a rich soil by which the seeds of failure grow abundantly. It's so subtle that its presence is often not detected. This affliction cannot properly be classed as a fear. It is more deeply seated and more fatal than all 6 fears. For want of a better name, let's call this evil susceptibility to negative influences. And he titles the passage, The Devil's Workshop. The devil's workshop in our life is susceptibility to negative influences. And our susceptibility to negative influences is what allows those 6 ghosts of fear to thrive in our lives. And he gives us information on protecting ourselves against negative influences. And one of the biggest things you can do to protect yourself from the negative influences, as well as the 6 ghosts of fear, is to control the one thing that you have absolute control over. There's one thing that you have absolute control over, is your thoughts. And if you don't have control over your thoughts, then it's time for another come to Jesus. Because if you are a child of God, he has given you power to become sons of God, which means he has given you power to control your thoughts. He's given you power to control your affections. He's given you power to control your desire. He's given you power to control your will. He's given you power to control your emotions. All of those things make up our personality, and he has given us power over all those domains. So we have to control the one thing we can control. And if you find that you are having racing thoughts that are hard to control, get with me. I am not a counselor. I don't pretend to be one, but I have very good exercises for you. You can also find them in our Tagger class. I have very good exercises for you that will help you stop that cycle, interrupt that cycle, and allow you to regain control of your mind. All right. Okay. So, I want you to decide. I want you to decide to take charge back of your life. I want you to decide that you are going to be open to everything that God has for you. And I want you to decide that you are going to take this journey, whether it's uncomfortable, whether it costs a little bit of money, whether it is something that you've done before, but you need to do more. I want you to make a decision today that your future self is going to thank you for. I want you to make a decision to be with me in the Think and Grow Rich 2024. Okay. So before I close, I want to remind you how to sign up for the Think and Grow Rich 2024. You can go to, I should put it in the chat, y'all. Hold on. Let me put that in the chat. You can go to jjclink.com/TAGR5, and you can go and Register now. Get the early bird special for the class that's going to not kick you. Yes, it's going to kick you in the behind if you need a motivation to go. Look, you and I both know that those little kicks in the behind, they only last so long. This is why we are working on changing the mindset. Because I can kick you in the behind and you can move a little bit, but that's not sustainable. You can muster up your willpower and you can do it and I can make it happen, but that's not sustainable. We got to change our thinking so that we can think and grow rich, okay? The class starts in October. You're going to get last year's class to tide you over, okay? I know you're going to love it, all right? Each class is regularly priced at $499. So this is $1,000 value you're getting just for $199. So go out to jjclink.com/tagger5. You'll save $800 on both courses when you register today. And I hope that you have enjoyed it. I'm going to check really quick to see if there's any questions in the chat. I don't see any questions. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're listening to this as part of the podcast, your time is your most precious resource. And I highly, highly value that you have chosen to spend your time with me today. I am JJ Conway. Y'all take care and be blessed.